It's time for the Ward Scott Files, hosted by John Martin. Join the Salt Dog, his captain, Ted Yoho. Search for the Ward Scott Files on Facebook, video, and every social audio platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Now here's your host, the Salty Dog, John Martin.
Good morning and welcome to the Ward Scott Files, hosted by yours truly, John Martin, and my soggy sidekick. He just came in through a driving rain, Captain Ted Yoho. Welcome to our pirate ship.
Good to see you, man. Hope everybody had a good weekend. I know we did.
Yeah, I tell you what, coming in was a bit of a challenge today, was it not?
Oh, man. It was, like you said, it was like hurricane weather there for a few minutes. It's supposed to get up to 25-mile-an-hour gusts a day.
Yeah, this is our version of snow, I suppose, by the way, down here. But we're glad you're here, and we're going to start right off the bat by talking about a civil war that is beginning to happen. There is apparently a civil war happening within the Democratic Party right now. We're going to be using as a context a Newsweek article, but I wanted to, the debate is really heating up in the Democratic Party after President Trump's speech this past Tuesday night.
It sure is, isn't it?
Yeah. Go ahead, Ted.
Well, you're going to see it on some of these clips that you've teed up, which are really good clips that you brought up. The one that I'm really interested in is the one on Hakeem Jeffries. When you listen to him speak, just see if that exudes confidence, if that's inspiring when he talks, and he talks about how we're playing politics. Everything they do is playing politics, and it's like I said last week, they're still on that game plan of the offense trying to beat the defense instead of trying to win for America. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. And I think we're going to play a short clip from President Trump's speech because I really believe that this phrase that he used really set them off and kind of set up the whole night in his speech. Let's check it out.
It is the fingernails on the chalkboard.
And to my
No
fellow
doubt about it.
citizens, America is back.
And we're back, baby.
We're back. America's back.
America is back, man. I mean, I think that is something that really got them. And also later in his speech when he talks about the border, when he says, we were told that by the Biden administration that we couldn't stop it, that it needed congressional action. And President Trump looked him right in the eye and said, it turns out all we needed was a different president.
A new president.
A new president.
That whole phrase, America's back. Contrast that to Biden when he goes, it's working. It's working.
Yeah, it's working.
Don't know what it is, but it's working.
Well, you bring up a point there that triggered something that I heard over the weekend that they've done a little bit of research and pretty much all of Biden's signatures on orders and bills and all of that were pretty much electronically done, which brings in, did he actually sign any of them?
Did he know what he was signing is the question, too. No. In fact, you didn't see press conferences where he was signing a lot of anything. They guarded that guy, and it was a shame. It was a sham on the American people and on the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and another thing I just thought about, that one of the things they bashed President Trump.
That's good you're doing all that thinking this morning.
Every now and then, my brain should be a little soggy, but it's not right now. But, they bashed President Trump for his first cabinet meeting because he had Elon Musk in there. They keep talking about, Musk is not a cabinet member and all that. But President Biden had very few cabinet meetings. And if you remember the last one he had, Jill Biden was running it.
That's right. She ran it.
So
what's that tell you there, folks?
It tells you all you really need to know. Well,
she's culpable too, in protecting him and keeping him in there. And I swear that it's a form of elder abuse. And you got to think it was personal gain on her part.
Yeah, I will say this, and I have zero proof of this other than what she wore on election day, but I still think Jill Biden voted for Donald Trump because she wore MAGA red. I don't know if you remember that or not. But back to this story we're talking about. We're using a Newsweek template here about the civil war that is going on for leadership and messaging of the Democratic Party. So I'm going to read you a couple of snippets from the Newsweek article. The Democratic Party has been reeling from its presidential defeat in the November, which saw Trump triumph over Vice President Kamala Harris, securing 312 electoral votes to the Democrats' 226. So absolutely a significant win by every measure.
It really was.
And all the swing states and the popular vote. And, of course, you had Al Green up there talking about you don't have a mandate. Well, the numbers show that President Trump does have a mandate.
It sure does. It sure does.
And that riles up the Democrats even more.
And I know that goes right into your next topic you want to talk about.
Yeah, well, and back to this article. On Thursday, California, we talked about this last week a little bit. On Thursday, California Governor Gavin Newsom released the first episode of his new podcast, This is Gavin Newsom. And in that, he was talking about women's sports, and he said that this right here. He said, participation he said it's deeply unfair for transgender athletes to participate in women's sports. He said in an ad in which the Republican candidate argued that Harris is for they and them. He said, and Trump is for you. That was one of the very effective campaign ads that President Trump used. But Mr. Newsom called it brutal and brilliant campaign commercial. Brutal and brilliant. Do you think that it describes Donald Trump in any way?
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
But, I mean,
he can be brutal.
He can just come out with those things. And again, you're going to go into the backlash he's received, and we'll talk more about that because I got some things I want to say there.
Absolutely. Well, back to this article, Newsom's remarks triggered an immediate backlash from within the progressive movement. I didn't know there was any other movement in the Democratic Party, with former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot calling them disgusting. Lori Lightfoot, man, I don't know who looks better, her or Beetlejuice. I mean, it's amazing. If you see that picture on the screen, it is amazing how much resemblance they're at. And that's not a doctored photo, by the way, of Lori Lightfoot. It may be of Michael Keaton as big as Beetlejuice. I better not say it 3 times or he might show up.
Yeah, that's right. He'll show up.
Yeah, but it's just unbelievable that he's getting backlash. But this is what Lori Lightfoot, former mayor of Chicago, and I tell you on a side note, Chicago may be wishing they had her back as mayor compared to the one they got now.
Right.
I mean, that dude is unbelievable. But this is what Lightfoot said in response to Gavin Newsom talking about the fairness of transgender athletes competing against women. She said, there are kids waking up today in California with this news thinking that their governor, talking about Newsom, hates them, and rightfully so. So she's saying that kids in California are going to now hate there's many reasons to potentially hate Gavin Newsom, but saying it's unfair to have transgender athletes compete against women and girls, I don't think too many kids would feel that way.
I don't think so. Again, it's divisive politics. This is what the Democrats do over and over again. And Gavin Newsom, as we've talked about before, he's got his finger up in the air. He's looking for his next political position. He's trying to position himself to run for, the presidency. I hope he does, because you see people that will put their character and integrity or their ambitions and wants above their character and integrity. They're dangerous people. And I think the American people are smart enough to make sure he doesn't run. I hope the Democrats aren't smart enough and they do nominate him.
When I think about Gavin Newsom, and I don't know if you've heard this story or not, but this was several years ago and kind of tells you all you really need to know about big government. People may not remember this, but at one point, Gavin Newsom had National Guard troops on the southern border down there in San Diego.
He sure
and
did.
He pulled them off to put them in Northern California. Do you know why?
What was that for?
It was because they legalized medical marijuana in California, and they were making tax dollars off of medical marijuana. And people may not know this, but Northern California is one of the most prolific guerrilla pot farming areas in the country. And so he literally put the National Guard up there to attack guerrilla pot farmers because they weren't paying taxes.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Wow.
so you take troops off the border that protects the American people and put them up there to fight guerrilla marijuana farmers because of tax dollars. So
all about the money. It's
all
follow the money.
All about the Benjamins, baby. But back to this story about the Civil War. So California Representative Sarah Jacobs, the vice chair of the Congressional Equality Caucus, whatever the heck that is, told Politico about Gavin Newsom's comments. What's unfair is the targeting of transgender kids and politicians abandoning them, I guess the kids, for political expediency. Abandoning them. So they're abandoning the children by letting men compete against women.
This is a typical way that they operate. They create a problem, and they put all this notice instead of helping these kids transition from adolescence to adulthood. They say, oh yeah, you are a woman. You are. We're going to not tell your parents, and we're going to get you help for that. And I know people are struggling with that. And I pray for the people out there that are going through that in their family, but this too shall pass. As these kids mature, and it's been shown over and over again, as they mature, they come out of that. And a lot of the ones that went through surgery, they regret it. And this is the typical Democratic divisive politics. They create the problem, then they come in and want to solve it, but when they lose that narrative in the public opinion, they're mad at everybody.
Yeah, and the term abandoning I find very interesting term in general, because my question is, what are they abandoning? Are they abandoning American core principles? Are they abandoning public safety? Are they abandoning the rule of law, women and girls? What exactly are they abandoning? The list is pretty long.
They're looking to put blame on somebody so that they don't lose the power, and it's all about that. They want to be in there. They think their policies are good, but again, they lost the mandate. They need to come back to the center. And again, as I've said before, I hope they stay far to the left, because our country will be a lot better off.
Absolutely. And I saw a thing on Facebook. By the way, if you want to chime in on Facebook, we'll try to. We're experimenting with trying to answer your questions. We certainly will in a timely manner.
We're learning to walk and talk at the same time.
Right. We're a work in progress. We're not abandoning you, that's for sure. But I was looking on Facebook, and I saw a thing on a local about the road situation in Alachua County.
You can always tell when you come into Alachua County.
Because the road, it used to be just the opposite.
It
used to be, you could tell when you're in Alachua County because the roads got better. But now you can tell when you hit, because the first thing you hit is a pothole. But it reminded, and by the way, if you don't know where Alachua County is, it's the Sea of Blue, or the Lake of Blue and the Sea of Red in north central Florida.
It sure is.
And by the way, if you're wondering where we're broadcasting from, we are broadcasting from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in the beautiful Celebration Point, right off the interstate in Gainesville, Florida. And you can see all these helmets. We're in the coach's podcast room. So if you've never been here, you really need to do yourself a favor and come to Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, because it is a living museum to not only Coach Spurrier, but sports in general. And on top of that, the food is terrific.
It's a museum of sports memorabilia.
Absolutely.
And you can have great dining at the same time.
So we're proud to be here. But I was thinking about that pothole situation, and it reminded me of something. And my response to the on Facebook was that, government's first responsibility, especially at the local level, should be infrastructure and public safety.
It really should be.
Everything after that is kind of added.
And if you look at the federal government, their number one task is to provide for the common defense of our nation. And the past administration showed they weren't doing that with those open borders and their policies. And, as Trump says, America's back.
And one of my good local friends here, a former mayor of Gainesville, Ed Brady.
Yeah, no Ed Ruff.
Yeah, he said something one time that really has stuck with me over the years, that he said that if you could find it in the Yellow Pages, and people might not know what Yellow Pages are anymore, but if you could find it in the Yellow Pages, government probably shouldn't be doing it. In other words, leave it to the private sector.
I agree with that. There's a lot about that. They can kind of bring money to the situation, for roads and things like that we all have coming back to us from our gas taxes and our federal taxes. And so, yeah, they can facilitate the effort.
And rule of law also kind of triggered me to something that's been going on for months, but literally over the weekend is heated up again. And that is these crazy Palestinian protests on places like Columbia University. And Donald Trump actually cut or was withholding, I think, $400 million in funds for Columbia. The Columbia University because of these literally riots is what they really are.
Organized riots.
Organized riots.
And you saw where they picked up that Palestinian student that was heading that one at one of the universities, and they're saying they're going to take him out of the school, cancel any loans he had or any grants, and they're looking to deport him.
That would be very interesting because where are they going to deport him to? Palestine? I tell you what, if they started actually taking all these people who are trying to stand up for Hamas and actually sent them back to Palestine, that would end pretty quickly, I think, because no one wants to go to Palestine, even Palestinians, I don't think.
I don't think so.
But I wonder, back on this civil war within the Democratic Party, listen to this from the New York Times. An IPSOS poll published in January found that 79% of Americans did not believe people assigned male at birth who identified as female, in other words, transgender, should be able to take part in women's, girls, or sports, including, check this out, 67% of those who identified are as lean Democrat. So almost 70% of Democrats agree with what President Trump is talking about and doing, and what actually Gavin Newsom, although I don't trust the guy, is talking about as well. So this is a hill they're choosing to die on. It makes no sense to me at all. Politically speaking.
And Gavin Newsom read this poll, obviously, for him to change the direction that he's going. And it's a losing proposition, because people look at leadership as somebody that stands firm on something and they're committed to it, and they'll go that way. And they I don't want to say rule, but they'll legislate that way, or they'll lead their flock in that direction. And when you're wishy-washy like this, nobody wants to follow you because you don't know where you're going. And again, this is a narrative they've lost. They keep wanting to argue it, and I hope they do, because America will be a lot better served.
Well, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about this civil war that is literally going on in the Democratic Party, and we're trying to figure out who the leader of the Democratic Party is. They're trying to figure it out themselves. But one would think that Hakeem Jeffries, who is the minority leader, basically he would be Speaker of the House, God help us, if the Democrats were to take over the House of Representatives. But you would think he would be a leader. But this is what he said. Now, keep in mind the poll numbers I just talked about. Keep in mind the response was almost in the high 70s in general for President Trump's speech last Tuesday night. Even CNN polls showed that. And this is Hakeem Jeffries, where he thinks the party stands right now when it comes to Democrats versus Republicans in Congress. Let's listen to Mr. Jeffries in his own words.
They're censure resolutions because they are on the run. Republicans are on the run with respect to the economy. Donald Trump consistently promised that grocery prices were going to be lowered on day one. But costs aren't going down, they're going up. The stock market isn't going up, it's going down. Inflation is up. And Donald Trump and House Republicans are crashing the American economy in real time. Republicans are on the run with respect to the economy. Not a single bill, not a single executive order, and not a single administrative action has been put forth by Donald Trump or House Republicans to improve the economic circumstances of the American people.
So according to Hakeem Jeffries, the Republicans are on the run. He's got them on the run. But the polling just doesn't show that.
No. We were playing some card games over the weekend, and I was losing really bad. And I kept saying, I got you right where I want you. That's right where I wanted to be at this stage of the game, and that's what they're doing. They think they have us on the run, and we are. We're running way ahead of them on policies. The Republicans are running way ahead of them, and they are righting the ship. And, you know, we talked about this before. Austerity measures were coming, and a correction was coming, and it had to come. You can do it proactively, is what we're seeing with the Republican Party, Mike Johnson and the president. They're proactively doing these things, and they're painful. But if we waited until those things were pushed on us by the situation, there would be chaos and there could be civil wars. You know, we want to avoid that. So it's going to be ugly as we're going through this. And, you know, if we all pull together as Americans, we'll get through this fine.
Well, I'm going to play another video, and I can't help but kind of tease you, my friend, because Mr. Yoho, which I call him the captain of our pirate ship here, was also a great member of Congress. I don't know if he was involved with any of these congressional people I'm about to show you. But when I watch this, I'm trying to picture you maybe doing some of this video. This is a video that the Democrats put out shortly after Donald Trump's speech, and it's called Choose Your Fighter. Check this out.
This is just embarrassing. Instead of acting like serious leaders, House Democrats are putting out child.
It's about as good as it gets, isn't it?
I mean, Ted, I'm trying to picture you doing that. Do you think you would have done a video like that when you were in Congress? What if the speaker at the time had come to you and said, Ted, we want you to dance up here and box,
I remember
that
great line of Clint Eastwood in Dirty Harry. A man has to know his limits.
Your limitations. But choose your fighter. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You got Ocasio-Cortez up there going like this. You got that Crockett gal, and I was going to pull up a video about her and some of the others, but I tell you what, you know, they talked about Donald Trump using foul language in his first term.
Oh, man.
But what the Democrats are doing now, and promoting it and cheering it on, I mean, they make Donald Trump look like a schoolboy or something. Altar boy, because I mean, they're doing this. They're using the F-bombs right and left. That Crockett lady, who seems like she's become the spokesman for the Democratic Party, she sounds like she is on the street somewhere instead of in Congress.
We have a breakdown in the system and the type of people we're sending. And keep in mind, you don't get the government you want. You get the one you deserve by the people we vote in there. And it's time for them to wake up. And, you know, again, you're going to hear me say this over and over again. We can't play party politics. We've got to put America first.
But, you know, I ask you out there, the Democrats that are, you know, still supporting that party, is this what your leadership, is this what you want for leadership? Because I say all the time, Ted, you know, on the show, that I'm not opposed to the two-party system. But if you're going to stay within the Democratic Party, you need to take that party back over. You need to be common sense, because what they're doing now is just ludicrous. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it doesn't. And, you know, again, the polls stated that very clearly. And I think instead of doing silly videos like that, or they had them, you know, I think it was a week or two ago, where they're trying to make videos and go viral, where that one representative was going into the Department of Education to see if he could sleep there because it was vacant. They're trying to do these silly things instead of really focusing on the problems, getting together across the aisle, get some legislation to fix immigration, to fix these other problems we have. How about tackling our debt that's going to crush this country? And, you know, you may not like Trump or Musk, but what they're doing, you're going to benefit, and the nation's going to benefit for generations to come. So how about let's getting together and working together to solve these problems?
Absolutely. So we've been talking about what the Democrats' civil war and what leadership looks like. I want to play one more little video, and then we're going to take a commercial break. That this, to me, is what leadership looks like. Check this out.
And our friends in the Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation. We must have legislation to secure the border. But it turned out that all we really needed was a new president.
That was the line of the night. He also revealed last night that he's...
To me, Ted, that's what leadership looks like, and that's really what is riling them
That's
up.
a great one-liner.
President Trump says what it appeared we just needed a new president. It's just amazing, and like I say, I've said this before, but I'll say it again, a Confucius prayer, may you live in interesting times, and we certainly do.
We have been blessed.
Yes, absolutely, because one of the things I posted on one of my Facebook pages is interesting times in Florida where we're buying eggs off the street and weed in the stores, but kind of interesting the way it is. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back, but please look at our sponsors, support our sponsors, and if you'd like to become a sponsor of this show, we'd love to have you, and contact Freddie. You'll see the tagline appear periodically on the show. We'll be right back.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Meldon Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files Gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Or that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth.
All bees poop.
A warthog. He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. Wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, don't.
Help me! Help! Help!
We're back.
We're back.
We're back. America is back, and we're back. And I know that's always your favorite part of the show when you see that warthog up there, right?
It is. It is. It wants me to go back to practicing. Not really.
I hear you, man.
On a day like
it
today.
reminds me of our dear friend Ward Scott, who we're doing this show.
That's his legacy.
His legacy in honor of him. Well, I wanted to talk about Ukraine, give people kind of an update on that, because it is literally a very fluid situation. And Russia did some extensive bombing of Ukraine this past weekend. And according to Breitbart News, more than 20 people were killed when Russia launched an aerial attack on Ukraine overnight Saturday. Russia on Saturday said its troops had retaken 3 villages seized by Ukraine in the Kursk border region. So, Ted, where do you see us with Ukraine happening now, where we're going from here? Because it seems to be a little bit of a tumultuous, if I can say that, situation.
I have a hard time with that word, too.
Tumultuous.
This is something, again, that I was worried about when Trump had that blow-up with Zelensky in the White House. it's okay to have those kind of discussions, but I wouldn't air it to the world, especially to somebody like Putin. And keep in mind, Xi Jinping is watching because he's wanting to move on Taiwan. And then you have Kim Jong-un, who you've seen has just lost a bunch of ballistic missiles, testing them. And it's just to rattle the neighborhood. And so when you have these kind of confrontations like Trump had on the world stage, it changes the dynamics, and people like Putin and Xi Jinping, they're going to push the envelope. They're going to see how far they can go. And then Trump announced they're pulling weapons, they're pulling communications and intelligence. And so you see Putin moving in further. Putin will not stop at what he wants to do. His number one goal is to rebuild the mother nation, Mother Russia. The fatherland is what he wants to build. And this is a sign of what he's willing to do, and he will not stop. If they sign a peace agreement, he'll agree to it, but then he'll start moving forward again, especially if we show weakness or we lapse our focus. And it's interesting to see what Europe's doing right now. We can talk more about that.
Yeah, well, you mentioned about Taiwan, and I was listening to a broadcast coming in today to the studio, and the commentator said something pretty interesting about Taiwan. And he believed, obviously that we need to push back against China. But, if China really decided to go into Taiwan, if they truly decided to go in it, what could we realistically do about it? Because people forget, Taiwan is literally like 90 miles from mainland China, and we're literally a world away. There's so many things happening in the world right now that potentially we are on the brink of World War III, as President Trump says, and the United States and Europe is certainly not prepared to handle anything right now. And, what could we realistically do, Ted?
Well, we've got our fleets over there, and we've got a strong relationship between Japan and our military. We have what they call interoperability, to where we would be in command of our vessels over there, but you'd have a Japanese general in charge of the whole operation, and that's what they call interoperability. It's our sailors know the same language and lingo that their sailors do, and vice versa. We also have this with South Korea in their military, and right now our Navy's doing exercises off the coast of South Korea, and this is what has Kim Jong-un all rattled. And so he fires rockets every time we do this. But one of these times, something bad will happen. The more they do this, the more incursions you have, it's more likely there'll be a mishap. And when that happens, all hell's going to break out. But to answer your question, what can we do? It would immediately pull us into a war, because what we've signed the Taiwan Relations Act, I think it came out in the 70s. It's been strong bipartisan support every year. And what that means is we'll sell Taiwan enough weapons to give them the protection they need, kind of like what's going on in Ukraine. And, you can go back to the Budapest Memorandum when Ukraine gave up their nuclear weapons. And so if China moves on Taiwan, that brings Japan into the war. That automatically brings the United States into the war, unless we go back on our word. And if you do that, where does that leave you standing in the rest of the world? And how's that going to encourage and embolden the Kim Jong-uns, or worse yet, his sister? I think it's Kim Yo Jong.
I call it the latest Kim.
The latest
Kim, which it kind of separate, makes it easier.
But they're deities over there. They think they are, descended from the heavens, and they have so much power and control over their people. I don't know if you read any of the reports about the captured North Koreans in Ukraine. They were told if they get captured, their whole family gets killed in North Korea. That's the kind of control they have over their soldiers and that whole population. So if we allow Taiwan, if the world allows Taiwan to be taken over by China, it's just going to be a different world order that comes out of that. And it will be one probably dictated more by the likes of Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party, which is a very authoritarian. The way they look at their society is their role is to serve the party. Whereas in our countries and liberal democracies, it's we the people. It's government by the people, for the people.
Well, when you were talking, I was thinking about, Russia and China and how they're kind of working together, it seems like right now, which is not really historically normal.
No, it's not.
If you think about Russia, they actually, and this is another reason, and people are going to take this wrong. I know I'm not siding with Russia, but another reason why we need to resolve the war in Ukraine beyond just the humanitarian reasons is we actually are potentially an ally with Russia against China, because it's not in Russia's overall historical best interest to have a really strong China.
It's not, and this is the ultimate, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So China and Russia will team up if they can weaken the United States and other Western democracies, and that's what you're seeing going on right now. It's the pieces on the chessboard are being moved around. Like how are we going to line up, or the players on the soccer field or football field? How are we going to line up these issues and these allies? And China and Russia will get along well until they bump us out of that, and let's hope that day never happens. But when that happens, you're going to see China go against Russia.
I think, there's
no doubt about it. I mean, historically, that's what they've done. And this goes back to Sun Tzu, who wrote in The Art of War, I think it was almost 3,000 years ago. His famous saying was, bide your time, hide your strength. So they're going to let everybody else expend what they can. He's going to be your friend until it's their time to take over. And when they do, they'll be the world hegemon, and they'll control not just the military, but the economics and how you live through their social credit scores.
Well, I think that Ronald Reagan was one of the people who coined the term peace through strength.
Yeah.
And I believe that Donald Trump has picked up on that. And that is probably the best deterrent. Because think about this. I mean, the reality is, if we actually have a World War III, there will be no winners in that situation. Because if we actually had a World War III and used all the weapons the world has at its arsenal, I think we'd be in a Mad Max situation after that.
It would be.
So,
there would be no doubt. I mean, all the infrastructure goes away. EMPs that are created from nuclear weapons, you go around the big metropolis areas, your big cities, it wipes all of that out. And it's been shown over and over again by different authors, from Ted Koppel to other people, that if an EMP hits 90% of Americans would die within 6 months to a year. And people think that's a little far-fetched. Look at your metropolitan areas like Atlanta, New York, these big cities, New York City, New Jersey, L.A., and we all know what happens here in Florida when a hurricane comes. You go to a Walmart or one of the big stores, the shelves are clear. Now, imagine if you can't have electricity, no credit cards are working, the banking system's shut down, no resupply, the water system's been turned off and can't run. It's mayhem. It really is. And that's the thing that we've got to do on our foreign policy. And that's why foreign policy is so critical, that we get it right, to prevent anything we can, to do everything we can to prevent those kind of conflicts. The world is bubbling right now. It's like a volcano that's thinking about erupting. We do not want that eruption.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it bubbling. I mean, right now the Middle East is bubbling as well, not getting near as much coverage, but there are massacres happening in Syria literally as we're talking right now. Christians and other minority groups there are being devastated. And, of course, President Trump put out a post that about Hamas that I really got a chuckle out of, but he said, Shalom, Hamas. And he said, Shalom means hello or goodbye. You choose.
That's right.
So Donald Trump keeps it interesting, that's for sure. But one of the issues, we only got about 5 or 6 minutes left in the show. You wanted to talk about the impacts of DOGE and these budget negotiations that are happening, whether or not we're going to shut the government down, and how all of this could ultimately trigger some type of response in the midterm elections. Could you expand upon that, Ted?
Yeah, I can. I think we're all applauding what Trump is doing. We've got the border, but when you look at the internal workings of government in Washington, so many of those programs that they're cutting needed to be cut. USAID, I think they had a budget, I hear anywhere from 20 billion to 40 billion to 60 billion. I don't know what the real number is, and I was heavily involved in that realm in foreign policy. But those things needed to be pulled back. And how do you do it? I think the best way is to get rid of it like they did. Bring back the good programs. Look at them as an investment, not as a liability. And if we treat them that way, we'll move forward. But when you start looking at all the people that have been laid off, thousands of people, jobless rates went up. Those are all going to be voters. And I was reading a report or an article on a guy that had been working at the VA. He was a Trump supporter. He gets laid off, and he was, I think, less than a month away from his probationary period, which was a year. So now he's laid off. It affects his family, his whole circle of influence. They're going to say, wow, he really got wrong by this policy. And when the midterms come up, who are they going to reward? So that's the thing that I'm all for what they did, but they ought to have solutions coming into place right now and take care of our veterans, make sure Social Security works the way it's supposed to. If not, when the midterms come, if this is a bigger mess, you're going to see another party get in place. And with the leaders in that other party, we're in trouble.
Yeah, they'll be up there doing like this. Can you imagine Ocasio-Cortez, or let alone
I try not to.
that Crockett lady having real power is a scary thought indeed. But you hear all this stuff with Doge and everything. I mean, some of the latest things that kept come out. Now, this is a small amount of money, but it also shows how crazy things are. Did you happen to see that they discovered at USDA, which I know is dear to your heart, that they were paying 3 different people like $60,000 a year just to water like 6 plants on the floor that had nobody
I heard
in
$52,000 to water 8 plants, and it said there was a sign on there that says, "Do not water, we're being taken care of." 52,000 or 60, whatever the number is, to water 6 or 8 plants is ridiculous. Those are the type of programs that have to go away. And we can go down a list. Those things make sense. I don't know how many people you need to have to water 6 plants, but it's probably not too many.
It's symbolic.
Yeah.
Though, really.
You can get a couple dogs and they can water it when they have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, there's more and more stuff coming out all the time. Now, we talked a little bit about it last week, this thing with Stacey Abrams. I don't know if you saw over the weekend.
Yeah.
She was on one of the MSNBC LSD shows or whatever they call it, that where she admitted that she got over $2 billion. $2 billion Stacey Abrams got from EPA to convert one little small town in Georgia to more efficient appliances. And she admitted that she got that money, $2 billion. And I reported on this last week that after they gave her the $2 billion, they actually sent her a program on how to do budgets.
Right.
I mean, good Lord.
That's pretty scary. And again, that's the misuse of government funds. And I'm sure you saw the reports, and I'm sure the listeners have, of over 5,000 COVID loans. SBA loans went out to people under the age of 15, and I think it totaled $500 million. And then there was another set of loans that went out to people over 100. I think that was $300 million. Now, this is what I'm reading. They're going to go through that, and they need to go back and find out how they did this. And we found out when there was a lawsuit. It was the largest lawsuit against civil rights lawsuit against the United States, and it was Pickens versus Glickman. It was a USDA loan where they're denying black farmers loans, and it was a real thing. And so anybody that was black that was thinking about farming anytime in their history, they could qualify for like $50,000. It was the settlement. And so what they were finding is apartments in Atlanta were getting like 10, 15, 20 checks all sent to the same address, but they were finding hundreds of millions of dollars going to Austria, Romania, all these foreign countries, and there'd be 20 checks going to the same mailbox. So there's so much fraud in these programs. It's good to right the wrong, but not at the expense of being sloppy and spending our money.
Well, I think the president is hearing some of that, because he did say that we're going to start using more of a scalpel than a sledgehammer or chainsaw, so
he
to
is.
speak.
He's hearing that, and he sees what's coming up. The guy that took over USAID under Rubio I think his name's Peter Morocco. They've had meltdown meetings between him and Rubio, and things are coming to a head in there. There will be an adjustment, and I think you'll see more thoughtful policies coming out going forward that will save them going into the midterms. And if not, the Democrats are going to get back in charge, and we go back to the craziness that we had.
Well, I think the greatest thing about it, not only is Donald Trump now the president, but he's put together quite a team that seems to be working together. And if you'd like to join our team, you can certainly advertise with us. Look at what's on the screen right now. Contact Freddie to be one of our sponsors. The more sponsors we have, the further out we can push this. We're now being seen on not only on the Ward Scott Files Facebook, but we have a Ward Scott Files YouTube channel that's back activated, and we're across pretty much anywhere you can want to see your favorite podcast, you will find,
That's
or
right.
soon will find, the Ward Scott Files. Anything you'd like to close out with, Ted? We got about a minute left.
No, we look forward to the response from our listeners so that we can get on topics that are more endeared to you, that you want to talk about and engaging. And then we look forward to maybe having a call-in line to where we can go back and forth and just really get into these issues deeper. Other than that, we had a great weekend with the Gator Nationals here. They're always great to see the hot rods, and people that went out there had a great time, and the rain bypassed us.
And March Madness is about to start, and our beloved Gators are right in the middle of all of that.
They sure are.
We'll be back live again next Friday morning. So tune in. Please like what we're doing. Share it far and wide. Tell your friends and neighbors about our show. And we appreciate you tuning in. Have a blessed day.
Absolutely. See you, John.